What's going on? I got my buddy Dan on today. What's good, dude?
I'm doing amazing, man. Grateful to be here and yeah, excited to have an awesome conversation with you.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on. It's been good. I haven't got a chance to really connect with you since Toronto. Just before we started recording, you said that you've got a lot of things going on. So how's life been?
Yeah, life has been amazing. And most recently, I was actually in Ohio for a book signing and ended up getting three authors, three book signings. I was just expecting one. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And, that comes with putting yourself out there. So yeah, life is keeping me busy, but in the good way, like I mentioned earlier.
Awesome. I love that, dude. So before we kind of get rolling into some other questions, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, who you are, and who it is that you help?
Yeah, so Dan Stoll from Livonia, Michigan, small town about 20 minutes from Detroit. And yeah, my backstory comes from a broken home with growing up with an alcoholic father. And, that really impacted me at that young age, especially from like fourth to 10th grade. And my mom and I had to bounce in and out of houses. He was in rehab, jail for a summer. And so there was just this constant stress and uncertainty. And I didn't have any ways to cope with that, ways to manage that stress, people to talk to about that. My mom tried therapy, but like I completely rejected that. Didn't feel comfortable in that situation opening up with some stranger at that point. So wasn't the right thing for me. And yeah, the only way I really had to manage all of that was basketball. And, that's something that we connect with as just being athletes and having those outlets. And that really became my life for nearly 20 years. Like I still play 3 days a week and it's just something that I love. But yeah, going back to those tough times, like it just really threw me into this space. And then I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis at the time, senior year going into high school. And that just completely stopped my world. I was homebound. I couldn't even go to classes at all. And then 4 days after graduation, I had the first of two surgeries that removed my entire colon. So that's something that we can definitely get into, but that was like this 4 year recovery process. And man, I was struggling, just trial and error, multiple ER visits to the hospital. And, after that 4 years, I'm like, I had this calling to share my story. And, that goes into what I'm doing now is just helping people get through those tough times. Like I started with wanting to help people in similar situations, but now it's like beyond that. And anyone that's going through adversity, that's what I try to help them with the podcast and through my services. So yeah, wellness and resilience, that's pretty much my life story and stuff that I just help people get through these days.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful story, and you've been through a lot, and just high level, everything's all great now with your health, and you're fully kind of on this new path. And where would you consider yourself now? Like best you've ever been, kind of thing, or
Oh
still in the
yeah.
recovery process? Is that going to be a forever ongoing kind of thing?
Yeah, you know what? It is a forever ongoing thing, but at the same time, I am the best I've ever been. Like it is this still ongoing daily struggle. And, it comes with making those lifestyle adjustments. If I stick true to them, if I stay true to that, then I know that I'm going to be able to manage my condition that much easier. But if I slip up, my health is going to slip up, and then that's going to affect other areas of my life. So, yeah, it's something I always have to be on guard and watch out and especially if I'm traveling, stay hydrated. That's one of the biggest things. So, yeah, it's being mindful and having that awareness for sure.
Yeah, I know mine. I know mindset is a big thing for you and your services, and just your life in general. And when you say that it's going to be an ongoing thing for life, is that a little daunting to you, or how do you handle that? Because is it now because it's part of who you are as your identity? Is it changed a little bit, or can you explain a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's a great question because when I was first diagnosed in 2015, it was this horrible label that I put on myself that I was going to have this for the rest of my year or for the rest of my life. And I was even suicidal because I was in so much pain at that time and I couldn't see any future beyond my illness. And it was just this forever thing, especially with the surgeries. You can't get your colon back. Like it's a one and done thing. So I really did struggle to grasp that, but as I've navigated through those 4 years, I really found purpose in my pain and my story. And, that's with by sharing it and helping others get through those tough times too, whether it is specifically through Crohn's and gut health, or if it's just getting through those negative emotions. Because what I realized in my story and the more I share it, a lot of people they can't specifically relate to that unless they have it, which is like 1 or 2% of the people, or they live with someone like they see that on a daily basis. So a lot of people don't understand what I go through, but they know the emotions that I deal with, the
Mm.
depression, the anxiety, the pain, the feeling alone. Those are something we all know, and nobody wants to be in that place. And so when we can just be universal and share those human emotions, share the stories, that's what really brings out the transformation and the change.
Wow. Yeah, I totally hear you with that. And I'm hearing a common thing that you're saying about with the loneliness and working through this whole process and knowing that there is a brighter and better future ahead. But when you were kind of going through the thick of it, how did you hold yourself to keep going, like with all these negative thoughts and situations and stuff? Did you have anybody that you could kind of lean on, or anybody else that you could kind of talk to, or was this just a solo journey for you and until you kind of pulled yourself through a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question as well, because it was tough when I got diagnosed. I was still living with my father, but my mom moved out because she just couldn't be in that toxic relationship anymore. And me, I had all this extra freedom, so I'm like, go ahead. Like I'm a 17-year-old kid, like I want that. And the thing was is when I got sick, my dad was also turning to recreation drugs and going down this bad spiral himself. And so the family actually like split and took sides, and it was my fault that I didn't want to have that relationship with him because I'm struggling. I'm trying to pick up my own pieces. And so I, it felt like a solo battle for a little bit. Like I had my mom and my grandpa and my girlfriend at the time. Those were my three rocks that really did help keep me going, because there was a point where it was like, I don't care about myself anymore. Like, this isn't about me. Like, I was ready to just throw in the towel. But I thought this was the metaphor that I say is like, I had this dagger in me, which I was ready to take out. But if I did that, I'd be just taking it out and putting it in them. And they would have to live with that pain for the rest of their lives. And just remembering that, oh, what could they have done more to help me? And I couldn't do that. So that's what really kept me going, was moving forward for them and, recognizing all they did to support me and be there for me. And, I'm grateful for that and still grateful for that. So yeah, I kept going for them for sure.
Wow, dude, give me chills. I got some goosebumps right now. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I love that you really you developed that awareness that it was more than just you. And I feel like a lot of people, it that can be difficult because when the cards are stacked against you and things are looking grim, it's just that much harder to look at other people and have that awareness of other people around you, because you're like me, and you're so caught up on that. And that's just incredible that you were able to kind of recognize these other people and that they needed you just as much as you needed them.
Yeah. And another thing to share with that, like getting real deep on this, is luckily I didn't make like a quick emotional decision to do all that. I put this 7 day deadline on my life. And the closer I got to those 7 days, the more and more I thought about those other people. And I feel like a lot of people in those situations, they will make that emotional decision because they're in so much pain and they just can't take it anymore. And they need that instant relief. And so that's where the tragedy happens. But I don't know why. I knew it was a big decision to make. So I'm like, I will put 7 days on this. I'll think about it. Like, and so I did. And closer and closer, it ate at me and that guilt. And I was like, I cannot do that. So that's where that came from.
Wow. And that's pretty insane to hear that. And I'm glad that you did give yourself that buffer, and I'm glad that you're here today to share your story. And hopefully somebody else takes something from this and they continue to grow and move in the right direction as well. Um, and now continuing forward with life and all these different challenges that you see now, obviously the challenges have kind of changed a little bit. But how do you continue to work on your mindset to make sure that things don't go in reverse and you continue in the positive state and continue with the better and bigger focus and things like that? How do you continue going?
Yeah, so there's two things I'll say for that. First is I do use pain to motivate me. Like we say, pain and pleasure are the two strongest forces. Pain, like the thing of not wanting that, that tends to always push me more than wanting something. Like I really don't want to go back to those sick, homebound, you know, that scene of my life that I was in. Like I'll do everything I possibly can, and I'll do all the research I can to, stay optimizing my health and just continuing to move forward. So one of it is just like never going back. But then I also adopt this philosophy of every day is a new life. And I really, from being in those like dark places, like I have that contrast and I know that things could be that much worse. And so by leveraging the pain and then also being grateful that, yeah, I actually am the best I've ever been since 2018. Every year has been getting better and better. And it's because I'm putting in the work. And I know that. So that motivates me to continue pushing forward and doing that work because I know it's going to keep on getting better. So, yeah, the pain and the pleasure, and just really recognizing and appreciating and making the most of every day because we don't, tomorrow isn't, we don't have that. Like, that's not the word I'm looking for. It's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, every day, just make the most out of it.
Yeah, I love that because that just shows how the amount of hard work that you're putting in constantly to continue growing and being better. And you're working on so many different facets of your life. You talked about basketball, how you're still playing constantly, exercise, eating better. You've got these mindset practices and exercises that you're doing. I can see you're constantly surrounding yourself with bigger and better people. So your social support system is just continuing to grow. And one of the other things that I like to talk about is like creating your own luck. And luck really comes from preparation meets opportunity. And you can clearly see you're putting all the preparation work in. And now you're associating yourself and connecting and creating these new opportunities for you. And you really are just developing into like, I mean, to say like for like not having the best words, but it's like you're creating such a lucky life and growing and continuing to amplify your life as you're saying it's getting better. It's like compounding interest almost. Your life is just exponentially getting better every year, and you can clearly see that with all the hard work you've been putting in.
Yeah, well, one, I appreciate that that recognition. It really does mean a lot. And two, like that it really does come from putting yourself out there. Like this, the reason we met is from Toronto, and I knew about it, but I never confirmed. And I confirmed on the Tuesday before, and I had to drive out at noon on Thursday. And so, like, those last minute decisions, yeah, they're scary, but they can open up so many doors, and you don't know, the good that can come from all of that. So, yeah, it's scary, but if it scares you, you should probably do it.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of cliche thing. If it scares you, you should know it's good for you, kind of thing. But how do you, for someone who is kind of on the fence, goes back and forth on these like scary choices and decisions to kind of push themselves, other than just kind of push and do it, do you have any other kind of advice that you would give to someone? Like maybe some quick like how to weigh out decisions, or is it just kind of go with what makes you feel a little anxious and nervous?
Yeah, I mean, one, I do trust my intuition with basically everything. So if I have a strong gut feeling about something, I'm gonna probably do it. And I can have a strong gut feeling, and then my mind will tell me all the reasons why I shouldn't do it and why it's like scary and what could go wrong. But if I had that initial feeling, I gotta put that on the shelf and I gotta trust and have faith and do it. Um, that's one thing. And then another thing is like, what's the cost of inaction? What's the risk of not doing it? And that can far outweigh just putting yourself out, because really, this is something I've really adopted in the past year is like, what's the worst that can happen? Either someone says no or they don't say anything at all and you can follow up. Like, literally, that's the worst that can happen. You get rejected. You can go find someone else and pitch to them. Like, there's really no bad thing that can happen. Like, your life is not on the line for asking a question like that, or, going in like a networking event. Like, those things aren't going to happen. Yeah, it's scary, but what's the cost of not doing it? Who could you meet? Who could change your life at that event? So just doing things like that. And the more I do it, the more I see the fruits of that, the more that encourages me to just get in more rooms.
Yeah, I love that. And it's that cost of not doing it really weighs in. And some people, I feel like personally, some people don't recognize how valuable or what the actual cost of not doing it is, because they're so focused on that, oh, it's comfortable to not do it. And then they're not registering those other things. And sometimes they might not just be mentally resilient enough to kind of handle those rejections and the kind of letdowns for going out, because like you said, it's either a no or nobody answers. So what would you tell someone who's struggling with that and trying to kind of push through and build that mental resilience so that they can handle the rejection? What would you say to that? Because I feel like that's a huge part of the mindset, but in order to get to that, you have to work on it, but it's hard to work on it because it's uncomfortable to get there. So sorry if that's confusing.
Yeah, no, I get what you're meaning. And I think with a lot of that, it's like we're here and we're trying to just jump the staircase and go to here. And you got to take small steps to get to that top of the staircase. So doing things like cold plunges, like that's totally off the subject, but is it? That builds your mental resilience. You're going to be in that water. You want to get out every single second that goes by. But the longer you stay in that, the more that gives you that rhino skin and just strengthens your resilience. And also just putting yourself out in smaller situations of failure. So if you're single out there, just start approaching people and, just starting conversations. You don't even have to be single. You can just have conversations with people. Like doing things like that like, oh, what if they reject me? What if they don't say anything? What if they just keep on walking by? So what? Right?
Yeah.
But those little things, those little asks and those little challenges to yourself, those are going to prepare you for the big one. And you're going to have the reps like we did in Toronto. We had all those reps and that gave us the confidence to deliver a keynote speech. So it's really the same thing, just taking those small steps and not trying to jump the gun and just get to the top of the staircase.
Yeah, I love that. Breaking it down and kind of like creating an action plan where I don't know if you're familiar with strength training, but there's a principle of progressive overload where you're just adding a little bit over time adds up to big changes. And it holds true for a lot of different aspects of life, just making those small progressive changes that creates the big change at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
that's where it really kind of grows and gets going.
Yeah, and that's what I love about sports too, because it just teaches you so much about life.
Yeah, really transfers over. That's how I got started with a lot of my personal development stuff, was just getting introduced into sports, and one thing leads to another, and then so on and so on. It kind of spirals. Um, so let me ask you. You've got your coaching. You've got a bunch of things going on. Where are you looking to bring your company Nova Fusion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a question that, I think long term on this. Like, yeah, I have the podcast. I'm doing this 21-day challenge, doing that quarterly. So the next one will be in January. That's like a group thing where we do 21 days. I got 4 group Zoom calls. We have the community so you can stay in touch. And that's kind of like my core offer. And then I'll upsell to the one-on-one coaching. But when I think of like the long-term vision of Nova Fusion, or like where I'm heading, like I always think of the stoicism that I read, like Marcus Aurelius. He did that like 2000 years ago, and his ideas are still relevant and impactful today. And so with the brands Nova Fusion, I just try to make this like this timeless brand that is here 100 years, 1,000 years from when I'm gone, and that it can continue to carry the torch and impact future generations and just overall move humanity forward. Like I say, I want this to be an icon of inspiration and a beacon of hope, and that's something that I think humans are always going to need, a little bit more hope and inspiration.
Oh yeah, I feel like you're always going to need that. It's never going to be short on that. And I love that. So you've got the podcast going, you've got the quarterly challenge, and that's coming up beginning of January. When is that kicking off on January 1st?
Yeah, it'll be a January 1st. And, I don't like the New Year's resolution, but it's a great one, like to get that momentum.
Yeah, there's something else to be said about the starting fresh kind of thing, but
Yeah.
it's always you can always talk about that more at another time. But I do want to be conscious of the time, and I don't want to hold up your day too long because I know you're busy. You got a lot of things going on. You've got the one-on-one coaching. You've got the 21-day challenge coming up. The podcast. Where do people find you, and how can they get in touch with you if they're interested in listening more on the podcast, or if they're listening or wanting to join the challenge, or even just reaching out for one-on-one coaching? How do people find you and stay in touch?
Yeah, so podcast, EMG Transformations. You guys can find me on Instagram. That's my main platform. Nova Fusion Co. or Dan Stoll 3. That's my personal. I'm also growing my LinkedIn account as well. So Dan Stoll on there. You'll see the red hair guy, and you'll know that's me. So yeah, I'm happy to connect with all you guys.
Cool. And easiest way to reach out to you is just shoot you a DM through any of the social media channels?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool. Awesome. And before I let you go, though, I want to ask you, if you were to, you got a lot of things going on, and you've a crazy story, and you're just continuously getting better. So if you were to boil everything down that you've been through and are continuing to go through as you grow and expand your personal life and also your business, what would be your number one piece of advice in order to survive the side hustle? What would be that one thing?
Yeah, and it comes back to the thing that changed my health and got me back on track with my mindset in life is control what you can control. It's really that simple. It's a simple concept, but the way that really you can put it to practice for anyone listening is create a T chart. Just one at the top, one down. I'm doing it for anyone that's watching the YouTube. You can put control, things that are within your control on one of those. And then on the other side, what's not in your control. So you got these two lists, all the things that are within your power, the things that are not, like the politics, the condition of the world, all of these other things, your boss, you can't control other people, all of those things completely just tear off or scribble out the side that you can't control because none of that matters. Only focus on what you can control. So whether that's your health, your business, your relationships, whatever you're really trying to pinpoint on right here, whether it's strength training, like what can I control? You can't control your genes, but you can control your workout plan. So things like that, that's been really the biggest exercise that really transformed my life to get out of that victim mentality and start pushing that needle forward and doing the things that I'm doing today. And I know that if you guys put this to practice, just grab a sheet of paper right now after you're listening to this episode, it can really get the ball moving for you.
Wow, dude, that was fire. Appreciate that exercise. I'm going to do that too later today. I know that's something I need to spend a little time on, is reflection and dive a little deeper myself. So I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on today and share your story, share some of your secrets that you use to kind of keep yourself performing and growing exponentially. And man, I'm looking forward to having you again on sometime down in the future, man. Appreciate you, and thank you again so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
See you later, man.